Hi, this is Steve Cook. Let me ask you a question. What sank the Titanic? Now, most people answer that question the same way. The iceberg. But that's not true. The iceberg wasn't the problem. The visible part of the iceberg wasn't what sank the Titanic. The real problem was the part nobody could see. You see, almost 90% of an iceberg sits beneath the surface, hidden, invisible, silent. And that's the part that ripped open the side of the ship. The visible part wasn't the danger. The invisible part was. And the more I've studied retirement, the more I've realized something. Retirement has its own icebergs. And most people are staring at the wrong part. They're looking at what they can see, the balance in their 401k, the balance of their 403b, and the balance in their IRA, the balance in their savings account. And they're looking at the value of their home, the latest stock market report, the latest statement from Wall Street. They're looking at the visible part, but the real danger is often hidden beneath the surface. Now, let me tell you something else about the Titanic. The captain's name was Captain Edward Smith. And I've often wondered, what if someone had walked into his cabin 1 week before the collision and said, Captain Smith, there's an iceberg directly in your path. What happens? Simple. A tiny movement of the wheel. That's it. A small adjustment. Nobody panics. Nobody screams. And nobody dies. The Titanic safely arrives in New York. Now, let's move the clock forward. What if Captain Smith received that same warning 3 days before impact? Still very manageable. The adjustment becomes larger, but it's still easy to avoid disaster. Now, let's move it to 1 day before impact. Now things get a little more difficult. The options are shrinking. The room for error is getting smaller. The decisions become more important. But the collision can still be avoided. Now, let's move the warning to 1 hour before impact. Now, Houston, we have a problem. Now there aren't many options left. Now we're reacting instead of planning. Now we're hoping instead of preparing. Now we're trying to avoid something that should have been addressed long ago. And that's exactly what worries me about retirement. Because retirement works the same way. The earlier you identify a problem, the easier it is to fix. The longer you wait, the fewer options you have. And here's where I think most people make a mistake. Most people believe their financial advisor is the captain of the ship. Nope, he's not. Most people believe their financial planner is the captain of the ship. But nope, she's not. Most people believe the company managing their 401k, 403b, or IRA is the captain of the ship. Nope, they're not. You are. You are the captain of your own financial ship. Not your advisor, not your planner, not Wall Street. You. And that's why this subject matters so much. Because when something goes wrong, and it will, nobody else lives with the consequences. You do. Now, don't misunderstand me. I think there are many good financial advisors, many good financial planners, many good people in the industry. But let's be honest about something. How often have you heard this phrase? Oh, don't worry. Or the market always comes back. Or stay the course. Or just ride it out. And maybe that's fine when you're 35. Maybe that's fine when you're 45. And maybe that's fine even when you're 50. Because if the market falls significantly, you still have years, maybe even decades. Time becomes your greatest ally. I know, because that's exactly what happened to me. Back in 2001, I lost $63,000. Then I lost my job. Then I watched everything unravel. Within 5 months, both cars were repoed. The house was gone. My confidence was gone. My identity was shattered. I became depressed. I couldn't believe how fast life had changed. One day I was making 6 figures. The next day I was wondering what happened. But there was one thing working in my favor. Time. I was still in my 30s. I had years to rebuild, years to recover, years to make mistakes, years to start over. Now, many people approaching retirement, they don't have that luxury. If you're 62, 65, 68, or even 70, time becomes a completely different conversation. A major turn down isn't just a setback, it can permanently change the quality of your retirement. And that's why I believe retirement is the single most important financial subject of your life. Not politics, not the economy, not who's in the White House, not what's happening on television. Retirement, because retirement determines how you will spend the final third of your life. And here's the lesson I want you to remember. The Titanic wasn't destroyed because it saw the iceberg. The Titanic was destroyed because it saw the iceberg too late. And retirement works exactly the same way. The closer you get to retirement, the less room you have to maneuver, the fewer options you have, the more important every decision becomes. The real problem isn't what you can see. The real problem is what you can't. The real problem is usually invisible. And in the next video, I'm going to show you one of the biggest invisible retirement risks that almost nobody is talking about. Because once you understand the iceberg, you start seeing retirement very differently. And I'll see you in the next video.